down on it that's compressing the air, and it's a warm, totally warm system, where the way a normal low-pressure system over the continental U.S. works is the air rises and cools. And so it's a totally opposite meteorological engine that drives the system. This is a self-contained thing. In actual fact, it's a fairly precarious balance that makes one of these systems work. And that's why they get knocked apart so easily. It has to be under just the right kind of conditions.
Well, with that in mind, what do you expect that will happen to this storm once it hits land? Do you think it will regenerate and go off?
I think what we're going to see is once the eye comes ashore here, we're going to see the eye get all kinds of funny shape. We're going to see the storm distort some, but I think it's going to maintain its integrity pretty much and go out in the Gulf and turn into another significant hurricane.
You do?
I do think it will. Now, we do have storm strike going. All right, let's go to that now, and guess what? Here we can see right on the edge of the screen. Maybe you guys ought to take the little logo off there.
How about that?
Look at that. So we are getting lightning, and look at this. This is just off of the Homestead. This is Elliott Key right down in here. So right off of Elliott Key. Now let's go back to the radar and see if we can do the same kind of thing. Well, Elliott Key's right here, so I think we're seeing the edge of these thunderstorms right here producing lightning. But clearly most of this storm is not made up of thunderstorms. So the amount of lightning is going to be confined to these very, very intense thunderstorms where we're having those winds gusting probably hurricane force and above.
I think you've been on your feet long enough. Think you maybe should come back?
Thank you, Tony.
This poor man. What's wrong with this picture? You see Kelly Craig and I coming in here on hourly shifts, and Brian stays here the whole time. You are amazing, my friend.
Thank you. Well, we're holding up here, and as long as we hold up, and our tower holds up, and the radar holds up, and we'll be here. There's no reason at this point to go anywhere else.
Okay, again, a reminder, we're simulcast on Y100. That's 100.7 on your FM dial. And again, we want to put out an appeal right now to any cable company out there. There you see our reminder to you that we are simulcasting on Y100, 100.7 on your FM dial. And as I said just a second ago, we are appealing to any cable company out there that as of 3 a.m., we will go up on a satellite, SBS5 transponder 14, and for any cable company that wants to bring us down, we will be up so we can continue to give you round-the-clock coverage on Hurricane Andrew.
Okay, we need to go to Dade County Emergency Operations Center right now.
Good morning. This is Virginia Sanchez again. I say good morning because
Virginia.
Indeed,
okay, there's
it's 30
Virginia
now, and we're back at the Emergency Operations Center here monitoring Hurricane Andrew. With me now is Director Fred Taylor, who heads our Metro Dade Police Department, and also with me is Mike Weston, who's going to give us the latest update from our over 40-something shelters that we're currently operating. Before I do that, there's just something I'd like to say, and that is that there's been rumors and misinformation going around for the residents that are concerned about lights flickering in their homes. What should they do when power goes out? We are reminding everyone that if for some reason there are lights that may flicker, don't panic, don't turn your power off. Indeed, wait for an actual power outage. That is what Florida Power and Light is recommending. The flickering of lights may be due to many different reasons. It's not an emergency unless there's actually a power outage. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Director Taylor.
Well, fine. Just real briefly, we change shifts at midnight. We have fresh people on the street, so to speak, and they'll be out there to help if we have any problems until the winds reach a point where we can't do that at that time, and they will then seek safety for themselves. The calls that I've gotten, the streets are fairly clear, very few cars on the street. That's very good. That means those of you who need to seek a safe place have done so. We can only advise you we're still 2 or 3 hours away from the kinds of winds that you don't need to be out on the street on. So stay where you're at, and please, once the storm has passed us, please stay where you're at until we can get out on the street and say that it's clear. At this time, if you have anything you'd like to ask, I'd be glad to.
What is the limit as far as strength of winds that you're telling your officers?
Sustain 40 miles an hour. At that point in time, it's unsafe to drive a car. At that time, we would tell them to seek safety.
And again, Director, tomorrow, the next day, you don't want a lot of people moving all over the county.
Well, it's not going to do them a lot of good because trees will be down, poles will be down, wires will be down, and wires kill. So let us clear the streets first, and then they can go see what they want to see. Okay. Thank you.
Good morning. The update on the shelters are that with the 48 shelters we have online, in excess of 50,000 people have now sought shelter protection. I want to emphasize for those people who are now making a final decision to, and it is their last opportunity to make it to a shelter, those shelters that we're still showing as having capacity. Hialeah Middle School at 6027 East 7th Avenue. Miami Gardens Elementary, 4444 Northwest 195th Street.
All right, you were listening to the Dade County Management Center's update. We understand that Channel 4's Dave Bloom is live at Hallandale High School, one of the evacuation sites in Broward County. Hi, Dave.
Hi, Kelly. This is, of course, one of the many evacuation centers here. There are about 1,500 people here now. Obviously, you can't see most of them. They have it divided into a large number of rooms here inside Hallandale High School. Certainly one of the most expansive shelters around here. Now, let's step outside because we want to show you the sort of storm that's coming up. It's not very much at this point yet here in Hallandale. We were outside driving down A1A for the last few minutes, and we got a little bit of rain and some wind, probably in the neighborhood of maybe 20, 30, 40 miles an hour. But certainly it's very calm here compared to what we expect it to be like in a couple hours. It was a little windier along the beach, as you can well imagine, and some rain was kicking up. But pretty much you're not seeing too much activity here yet, and certainly nothing given what we would expect in the next several hours. We might also show you the front page. I'm not sure if you've seen this yet of the Miami Herald for this morning. The big one, this is their headline from today, Hurricane of Our Nightmares is knocking at the front door. And that's certainly the case if you're watching. We talked to those people in Hallandale just within the last hour or so who were still waiting out the storm in their condo. That doesn't make any sense at all given the magnitude of this storm. Even if it comes down from a Category 4 to a Category 3, it really, in the scheme of things, doesn't make any difference. It's still going to be very dangerous to be out there, and certainly that's why we're grateful that a lot of people are here.
Dave, what would you say is the capacity there, and what percentage is it filled?
Well, what they're saying is that they're willing to take as many people as come in here because you can see that they've got plenty of room here still. They're saying that they could take 3,000, 4,000 people, maybe even more, because as Brian has alluded to before, they can cram more and more people into this space, and this space isn't crowded at all at this point.
And it doesn't look like an uncomfortable situation there, David.
Not at all, Brian. I mean, the people are telling us that it's very nice. They've provided them with lunch. They've provided them with dinner. Some of these people who heeded our advice have been here for, going on, say, 12 hours now. And all of them talk about how what a great treatment they're getting here from the Red Cross, from the Broward Sheriff's Office, from Hallandale Police. It's a nice place to come, certainly to get out of the storm.
And you're just north of Hallandale Beach Boulevard on Northwest 9th Avenue.
That's right, and that puts us just east of I-95.
Immediately east of I-95. So we tried this before. We tried to appeal to those people that were out in that condominium on Hollywood, on the beach in Hollywood there. We gave them your address where you are right now and tried to convince them that was the place for them to be.
I can't say that we've seen them, Brian. I can tell you that. I mean, but I will say this. You mentioned that the Hallandale Police, the Hollywood Police, have been driving up and down A1A to try to see if they've got any stragglers out there to bring them here.
All right. Well, all we can say is I don't know what else we can do. We've tried to convince people that the shelters are not some terrible, horrible place to be here tonight.
Far from it. This is very nice here.
Yeah, I know. I wish our television station was set up quite so completely as that shelter out there. David, thank you very much. Are you going to stay out there, David, if you're still with us?
I assume that he is. He had planned on staying there all night. We also understand that Channel 4 photographer Rob Pierce is live now on Miami Beach. Rob?
Well, you can see the winds are definitely picking up out here. As you look at these palm trees, it's really blowing. There's not a lot of people left on the beach here. As we look around here, we zoom in down the street here. There are a few stragglers around, but most people are taking heed of the warnings to get out. And right now we're feeling a pretty good gust of wind, as you can see, as we look around here. We haven't had a chance to get to the ocean yet, but I'm sure that the waves are kicking up at this point. We're going to walk down here and see if see if there are a lot of people hanging on the streets. We've seen a heavy police presence tonight. They do have the causeway blocked off. You have to go through Miami Beach police officers in order to get here. They ask you if you have business on the beach before you can get here, and of course they're trying to keep everybody off the island. As you can see here, a couple people obviously gonna hang out here tonight and try to fight this storm. Winds are picking up, so obviously this isn't the place to be. And I'm sure in just a little while we're going to start feeling some serious rains and gusty winds from this storm.
Rob, that's what's going to happen here is you're going to get these gusts and squalls first. That'll be the first go around, and then eventually, here probably another hour and a half from now, the winds will rise fairly continuously. How long are you anticipating staying out on the beach?
Well, I'm out here with Chief Photographer Mike Zimmer. We're going to ride around a little bit and see what we can do. Obviously, we're not going to take any chances. Once the heavy rains and the wind comes in, we're going to have to assess the situation and decide whether we want to stay out here.
All right, well, one thing is there goes the Miami Beach police car. We clearly have a view of it with our radar here, so we know exactly when that heavy weather is going to start, so you stay in touch with us.
At what point are you anticipating that, Brian?
Well, we think around between 1 and 2 a.m. Is when it will really start to kick up. You should be okay there for at least another half an hour or so. I mean, winds now are gusting to 39 miles an hour on the beach, but that's only in gusts. And it'll take a minute. If we want to put the radar back up there, folks at home at least can see the edge. Well, it's hard to see on this Miami radar, but the real heavy weather is still well offshore. By probably another hour's worth. So you'll be okay, but stay in close touch with us, Rob.
Yeah, we'll make sure that we keep in touch with you, Brian.
Okay. All right, Rob Pierce on Miami Beach.
I would imagine, too, in a very short time, we won't be able to take these live signals, regardless of whether they're brave enough to stay out there.
Right, you could hear that breaking up, and because we have to put up a tower out there. I don't know. I guess they have a live truck out there with them. Is that how they were doing that? Anyway, we have to put up a tower, and we can only do that in certain wind speeds. Eventually, we can't put those towers up anymore, and then the towers blow around. So, in any case, you notice Dave Bloom's live shot was not the best quality, but again, we're operating under imperfect conditions.
But of course, our first concern is their safety.
Right.
Beverly White is live at Carroll City, a shelter there. Bev, what's the situation?
Well, Kelly, obviously all bets are off when it comes to bedtime for the kids. We've got a lot of children lingering here in the foyer just outside Miami Carroll City Senior High School. Not to mention a lot of grown-ups standing by because, quite frankly, under these conditions, who can sleep? Some folks inside are trying, but it's a fitful rest at best. We understand there are some 1,600, possibly 2,000 people inside this shelter now. And as we were told earlier, they can handle exactly some 3,500. So there's still plenty of space available here. But for the folks who are here, they are enjoying some semblance of safety. Now, the rains have come off and on all night. There's been a bit of a cool breeze within the last half hour. That's generated this crowd here in the foyer. But believe me, these people are happy to be here because they're certainly safe, if not necessarily comfortable. 14-year-old Darius Lewis says he's too excited to sleep, even though he and his family have been living inside this high school since they caught an evacuation bus Sunday afternoon.
It's my first time in a hurricane, and I never experienced it. So I always want to experience a hurricane.
The Lewis family joins nearly 2,000 people already registered to ride out the storm at Miami's Carroll City High School. People like this 78-year-old woman, another Miami Beach refugee. Are you scared?
Not really. Cool, calm, and collected.
I've experienced one. I've gone through one. I've lived through one. I've seen what it does and everything, and I take it to heart. It's not something that I take lightly.
Emergency workers share her concern, but they tell us they're turning away one group of refugees, those with special medical needs.
The generator has some problems, and it's not going to be online. So when we lose power, we're going to be in darkness, and we won't have any capabilities to plug in auxiliary oxygen equipment or what have you.
Now, those special needs refugees, as Jose Diaz-Balart explained earlier, are the folks who just might need some sort of electrical equipment. And if there's a power outage, they really wouldn't be able to be comfortably served here. And that's why the emergency workers tell us they prefer that those people go to another shelter. But they've still got some space here. They encourage anybody who's waited this long, if you hesitated and you're driving around and you're thinking about it, just head straight to this location. We are at 3422 Northwest 187th Street in Carroll City. It's a comfortable crowd. Everybody's been very kind kind to us. They've made space for everyone who's come in since we've been here, and frankly, we plan to spend the night with these folks, so I'm hoping they'll scoot over and make a little space on the floor shortly. Kelly?
All right, Beverly. One thing I wanted to ask you, Brian, at what point should people just stop getting on the road? I mean, we're talking about these shelters.
We're getting very, very close here now to that time. The best we can tell from the radar, though, is that conditions have not deteriorated to the point that it's not safe at this point, especially in the inland sections, to drive. And luckily, it appears that the rain ban right at the coast is indeed sort of dissipating, which is not an uncommon thing. Clearly now we are seeing a closed eye wall around the eye. You see the bright yellow embedded in that. You see some orange indicating on the very top side, indicating more intense activity. It goes from light green for fairly light rain to dark green for dark rain. But as you can see, the dark green has now, since Tony and I were just talking a few minutes ago, has now shifted all the way around to the bottom of the storm. So now the part up there where all that light green is, when that comes across the coast, it's not going to be a lot of rain, and the darker stuff down further in the Keys might get heavy rain. So it's impossible to just determine exactly where it's going to happen.
But of course, the main concern in something like this is the wind more than the rain.
Which is the intense yellow and orange right around the eye of the storm there. That is where, when we talk about a storm with 130 or 135 mile-an-hour winds, that's where those winds are, in that little narrow area right there. You can see how narrow that is. Okay, we have Dave Bloom back at Hallandale High School.
We wanted to come back here because we've got some new information, not about Hallandale High School, but rather about Dillard. Now, Dillard is where they were having some structural problems earlier in the day. If you recall, that was one of 4 shelters here in Broward that was originally not opened. Well, they've decided to close Dillard, and they are evacuating about 1,200 people who were at Dillard because of the problems with the roof. Now, originally they told us that those problems had been fixed. That's why it was reopened. That's why they allowed people in. They've since decided that Dillard is not safe in the event of this storm with these very, very high winds. So what we're told is about within the last 2 hours or so, they began evacuating about 1,200 people from Dillard High School. Now that's at 27th Avenue and 11th Street Northwest in Fort Lauderdale, and that those people are being moved, or most of them have been moved, to Boyd Anderson, which is in Lauderdale Lakes. So again, people who were evacuated to Dillard High have since been moved to Boyd Anderson. Not something that you ought to worry about at this point because, of course, the storm hasn't come ashore yet. But just so you know, if you've got relatives or friends or family who you thought were at Dillard, they're now at Boyd Anderson, according to Broward Emergency Preparedness.
I suspect that's because they actually had more space in these shelters and they opened Dillard because they were afraid they weren't going to have enough space, and they found they had space so they could move them to a safer place. I think that's probably what happened, huh? All right, David, we need to go on to...
Jose Diaz-Balart, he's standing by live at the Emergency Operations Center in Dade. Jose, what's going on?
Well, good evening. You know, as a matter of fact, one of the concerns of people, if you've been seeing the show for a couple of hours now, the program, you've seen that a lot of people who even have been ordered to evacuate are not doing so because they're concerned that their personal belongings are in jeopardy. They're actually putting their own lives in jeopardy to make sure that their personal belongings are not stolen. That's clearly one of the concerns of many of the people here as this hurricane approaches. With me now is Director Fred Taylor from the Metro-Dade Police Department. Commander, thanks for being with us. First question, all those people that are in their homes and are saying when the electricity goes out, when my phone doesn't work, and someone is out there, what can they do?
Well, there's nothing they can do at that point in time. They're relatively, once the winds reach 40 miles an hour, we can't go out.
Right.
So from that point until the winds go below that again, they basically are there on their own. Hopefully, I would hate to think we would have somebody out trying to steal during the storm, because with this storm, it may be the last thing that they steal.
What about when the winds subside to 40 miles an hour? I mean, there are actually robbers that go into houses that have been tended for termites and they put their own. What about that time?
At that point in time, we'll be back out on the street. We have pre-positioned all our police officers around the county. They can respond to any area once that time arrives quickly. So we will be there, and we will go to those scenes as soon as it's safe for us to go out on the street.
Now, in the next couple of hours, when police still are patrolling, what advice do you have for citizens that may be concerned about their own security, may have some questions? Should they call police?
Yes, they should. We're there to help them, to assist in any way they can, get them to a safe place, respond to any kind of a call on a looter. until that point where we can't do that anymore. And
So
at that point in time, though, it should be relatively safe out there because I don't think a lot of folks are going to be out at that time.
Okay, and once again, important to stress that once the winds subside, people to stay in.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's, if this storm does what it can do and what we think it will do based on where it's going to come ashore, lines are going to be down, trees are going to be, glass is going to be on the street.
A lot of people don't see the lines, and you get to step on something.
You can get killed around your own house, so be very careful. Please don't try to go someplace else because you can't go in your car. You'll just get flats. You'll be blocked in by poles and trees. You'll put yourself in really a dangerous situation.
Fred Taylor, thank you very much.
But we'll be out on the street and we'll make it as safe as we can as quickly.
Okay, 40 mile an hour is the limit.
Is when we're back out.
Thank you, sir,
Okay,
very
thank
much.
you.
That's the latest from here. Now back to you.
Okay, Jose, thank you very much. We had a little disagreement that I noticed. I don't know whether I was the one that prompted that, but at the announcement there at the bottom of the hour, they said FP&L says don't turn off your electricity early. Go ahead and wait till if it flickers. Don't take that as the time to turn it off. And I want to disagree with them a little bit there. A little bit of a flicker, and then that solid electricity is no problem. You're not going to damage anything. It's a matter of semantics that we're talking about. It's if you start seeing things like your lights dimming and staying dimmed. Mm-hmm. That's at the point that I'm talking about, that you run the risk of damaging your air conditioning and refrigerator compressors especially. At that point that the electricity just isn't right anymore and stays that way, that's when you're better off to go ahead and shut it off.
The circuit breaker.
The circuit breaker.
Yeah.
And we go ahead and leave a light on. It's the lamp, because you can't do any damage to the lamp. If the electricity, the worst thing it's going to do is blow out the light bulb.
Right.
All right. So go ahead and leave a lamp on, but turn off all the other circuit breakers. And then if the electricity comes back and it's solid again, go ahead and turn it back on. But it's that half power, a peaking, fluctuating, rapidly kind of power that I saw. I related the story earlier. At my house, I could look out the back during Hurricane Cleo and see the lines swinging together and arcing. And every time that would happen, our lights would go down, and then they would swing back apart, and then would swing back together, and would swing back apart. Mm-hmm. And finally, they wrapped around each other, and the transformer and the pole blew up. But anyway, that's what can do damage to your air conditioning and your refrigerators.
Well, this picks up on something that Dave Bloom was talking about earlier. The American Red Cross has announced the closing of 4 shelters due to capacity. He told us about Dillard. It wasn't because they were afraid it was going to be too